This is officially Mom's house. First, I would like to thank everybody for coming out. This moment is so special to me. Today is my son's second birthday. He took his first steps in this house. And it's so important for our children to have that space to pull up and begin to take those first steps. I would like to thank all of the community, our neighbors, our comrades, our security, who held us down through this whole situation, our legal staff who fought like day and night. Everybody had our back, and I would just like to say thank you. This moment not only inspired Oakland, but Moms for Housing inspired the world internationally. Folks are occupying spaces and doing whatever necessary to house their children. Housing is a human right. I think it resonated with mothers so much because we feel protective over our children, and we'll do whatever is necessary to make sure that they're okay. And I'm glad that this has inspired moms to do whatever is necessary to protect your children. And housing is a human right, and we shouldn't be commodifying basic human needs. And I think that this inspired everyone to think about what can happen. And I would also like to give a special thanks to our city officials that stood with us when it was unpopular to stand with us, when folks called us criminals for trying to shelter ourselves and our babies during these winter months. I would just like to say thank you. And I will also like to say that it is election time, so pay attention to the folks who were there on the ground fighting with the people. Those are the people that deserve our votes, the people that put everything on the line to make sure that the community is safe and we're getting speculation out of our community. Pay attention to that as we vote. I don't even know what to say. It's such a good occasion, but I will say that it is going to get cold again. And there are still 4 empty homes for every one homeless person in the city of Oakland. And we have to come together and organize, especially now during COVID, to protect our neighbors and get them off the streets by any means necessary. And this is officially Mom's house. I don't even know what else to say. I would just like to say thank you.
Your name again, please.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Steve King. I'm the Executive Director of the Oakland Community Land Trust. And after a number of months of negotiating with Catamount, the subsidiary LLC of Wedgwood, the Oakland Community Land Trust did successfully purchase Mom's house here in late May. And we've been working with our architect and contractor over the past several months to assess all the rehab needs. As you can imagine, the house is in really poor condition, so we'll be starting the rehab in the next month or so, and are looking forward to putting it back into productive use for the moms. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
My name is Leah Weisberg, and I have the honor of representing Moms for Housing when the predatory owner of the property tried to kick them out on the basis of that housing is a human right. And that means essentially that housing is no longer and cannot be considered a commodity, or we are just not going to be able to house our community.
Yeah, let's just give it a second.
Part of what today symbolizes is that we no longer are going to be losing our housing to speculators, and that we're going to keep our housing in the community so our community is housed. There are lots of other legislation that we can be passing. Recently, the SB 1079 was an important step towards not making it as lucrative for conglomerates to come in and scoop up properties that end up in foreclosure. I think we're all very fearful because of COVID that we may be looking at that. So it's really important that we continue to use Moms for Housing as that symbol of the different steps we can take, because there's plenty. This is not some kind of confusing problem that there aren't answers for, and we need to very quickly take those steps. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nikki Fortunato Bass. I'm the City Council person in Oakland representing District 2. And this is an amazing victory for the Moms for Housing and for the movement for housing as a human right. It's been almost a year since the moms took this house in an act of civil disobedience to highlight the fact that housing is a human right, to highlight the fact that too many corporate speculators are leaving homes vacant when we have a homelessness crisis, we have a housing affordability crisis. And I know how dedicated these moms are, because we spent Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and the day after Christmas in this house, in court, defending the ability for these moms to be able to house their families. And one thing is sure, as we celebrate the fact that this is now officially and legally Mom's house, is that the solutions to the housing and homelessness crisis are simple. And it merely takes leadership, it takes political will, it takes all of us working together with community, with labor, to make sure that the homes that we see all around us can be occupied by the people who have lived here in Oakland for many, many years, if not generations. And I am continuing to be committed to partnering with Mom's House to do everything possible to ensure the best policies in Oakland to house all of our residents. As you all know, since the moms took over this home, we are in a global pandemic. We are in an economic recession, and the people who are hurting the most were already in crisis. And that is precisely why, together with Moms for Housing, I will not rest until we pass the Opportunity to Purchase Act to ensure that corporate speculators cannot own vacant homes, cannot jack up the prices of homes, but they have to make sure that these homes are in the hands of people who need to be housed. So thank you everyone for being here, and congratulations to Dominique Walker and to all the Moms for Housing for being so brave and showing the whole world that housing is a human right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. I am honored to stand together with the grassroots community and other leaders and advocates who helped fight for housing as a human right and who helped fight to say that we shouldn't have homes sitting vacant, owned by speculators who just want to flip them, while we have a housing crisis that is devastating people's lives and harming families and community. My name is Rebecca Kaplan, and I serve as the council member at large, as well as currently the council president. And it is such an important thing to uplift and celebrate this accomplishment here today, that this house is now being returned to the use of the community and will no longer sit vacant so that speculators can list it on their balance sheet. And let's be clear what's gone on here. The communities in Oakland have been targeted for predatory foreclosures and wrongful evictions. We had bad loans intentionally sold to communities of color in Oakland so that the banks could take the houses. We had deceptive mortgages where they would tell you, oh, it's a really low interest rate. And then in the fine print in the footnote on page 27, it would say that that very good interest rate is only for the first few months. And after that, the interest rate is going to skyrocket. And predatory lenders targeted widows, targeted people who didn't read English, targeted people in the community who were struggling with these bad loans that were used in order to take people's homes. And that is how it came to be, that there are so many homes that are owned by speculators and that are sitting vacant. This is also a side effect of the horrific actions of the mortgage foreclosure crisis and the predatory lending crisis, and how it is still hurting our communities. And so last December, myself and Councilmember Nikki Bass, who you just heard from, who's also a very dedicated leader on this issue, we wrote a letter to Wedgwood last December. And we have copies here for you if you like. We'll give those out. We wrote a letter last December saying the land trust is willing to buy it from you. You don't have to go through this strife. You don't have to tear apart community. You don't have to waste the time and money of the taxpayers fighting over this. They're prepared to buy it from you. You should sell it to them now. And we said that last December. And if they had listened, it would have saved everybody time and pain and suffering and aggravation, not to mention the thousands of taxpayer dollars that were spent on a heavy-handed sheriff response to this home. And I'm going to pause for the truck. There was a very expensive, very heavy-handed sheriff response, and that didn't need to happen. This could have been sold to the land trust in the first place. And so, even as we know that this pain was not needed to be inflicted on our community, today we uplift and celebrate and appreciate the Moms for Housing and everybody who has stood together to make this accomplishment happen. And I will stand in solidarity to make sure we continue to fight for laws that protect the community and keep housing in the community and not vacant and not for flippers. And one last piece of law I look forward to continuing to fight for. California has a law called the Surplus Lands Act that says when a government agency sells a piece of government-owned property, it should first offer it to affordable housing developers. And I fought hard to make sure Oakland abides by that law. But when the county seizes houses and puts them up for tax auction, they are not abiding by that. They're not offering them first to affordable housing developers. In fact, they are offering them primarily to flippers and outside investors when these are homes that are being sold by the county at tax auction. So we're going to continue to fight to make sure these laws are implemented across the board and that homes are not taken out of our community but are restored for the use to house people who so desperately need it. So thank you, congratulations. This is an important moment, and I'm honored to be here with you as we celebrate it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan Kalb, City Council Member, District 1, North Oakland. Great to be here. Congratulations to Dominique and Moms for Housing for the culmination and a start of a new life in this wonderful home. This is a success story, but we have to repeat this. This is one success story that's very, very important. It sends a big message, but this can't be the end of it. This has to be the beginning. Now, who cares more in Oakland? The corporate landlord speculators, or corporate speculators landlords, we might call them, or the community land trusts? Let's see. Is that a tough question to answer? No, we all know the answer to that question. So let's work with our land trusts. Let's work with the nonprofit affordable housing community. Let's work with the advocates. We don't need to bring in the corporate speculator landlords to let them have their way. Right? They exist. We'll have to deal with them the best we can, but they're not the ones who should make the decisions for the city of Oakland, for the people of Oakland. We have a serious challenge with the number of people we have who are living on the streets, and we need to do what we can to get them into homes. There are many things we could do, and this is one example of one of those things we can do, and we need to replicate this the best we can and go through the process. The new state bill by Nancy Skinner, I believe, it will help do that, but we have to work hard on a case-by-case basis. We have a lot of people who are going to fight this, who are going to push back, who don't want this to happen. We can't let them succeed. We need to succeed. We need to help those who need help the most. We need to get people off the streets into homes of one sort or another. This is a great example. Let's work with the land trust, push back against the corporate landlord speculators, and do what we can to provide homes for our families who need homes, as we all do. Thanks so much. And now I want to introduce Liz Ortega from the Alameda County Labor Council. Liz?
Buenos dias. I'll do both English and Spanish. I know we have some Spanish media. Good morning. My name is Liz Ortega. I'm the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Alameda Labor Council, representing 135,000 workers in Alameda County. And today we're excited to stand on this historic moment where Moms for Housing own this house. When we got the call as union workers, we were very, very excited to see what was going on and always came out and supported, because housing is a human right. And unfortunately in this country right now, most people have to work 3 or 4 jobs just to pay the rent. And it resonated with my teachers, with my nurses, with my construction workers. All who want to work one job should be enough to pay the rent. And so that's why we came out and stood here with these moms for fighting for housing, because housing is a human right. And I'm so excited that I have worked side by side with these elected officials and Carol Fife, who led the fight and led the way. My daughter most of the time doesn't care about what I do for work, but when she heard about the fight for moms, it resonated for her as a teenager, because she saw the kids who were also out here fighting, because she wants a home and a bed and a warm meal for every child in this country. And that's why we're here today. So thank you. Estoy hoy aquí representando el sindicato de todos los trabajadores en el condado de Alameda. Estamos muy felices de que hoy esta casa es de la gente. Esta casa es de las mamás y de los hijos que pelearon contra los bancos que les quitaron a mucha gente sus casas. Ahorita muchos trabajan 2 o 3 trabajos y no pueden pagar la renta. Pero hoy estamos mandándoles un mensaje a todos, que la comunidad está viendo, la comunidad está peleando y todos tienen derecho a una casa. Todos tienen derecho a una cama y a comida, y todos los hijos de nuestra comunidad tienen el derecho de pelear para tener donde vivir en los Estados Unidos. Gracias.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Rob Bonta in the California State Assembly, proudly representing Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro. We are right here in my incredible district, and I'm just honored to be with so many courageous, brave leaders celebrating an important moment of having the deed for the home. It's been a long journey. We fight hard, we fight for our values based on our passion for the things that we know are right and fair and just. And we need to pause once in a while to celebrate the victories that we have. And we all know that we are in a state of emergency when it comes to affordable housing, a full-on state of crisis. It's all hands on deck, all tools in the toolbox. We need to do everything in our power to make sure every Californian, every human being has a roof over their head, has a place they can call home. And we don't have that right now. We've been making progress, but we need to do more. And Moms for Housing and Carol Fife showed that a mom's love has no bounds, and a mom's courage has no bounds. And with an incredibly courageous act of, I guess I'll call it civil disobedience, but of an act of justice, they did something that echoed around the city, around the Bay Area, around the state, around the nation. They made the moral case that housing is a human right. They showed how important it was, how important, and they showed the disparity between these vacant homes owned by Wall Street owners and people on the street without a home, and just asked us the simple question, does that make sense? Is that the world we want? Is that the future we want to embrace? And the obvious answer is no. And they showed with their power, with their fierceness, with their justice, that we need to do more, we need to do better. And so they called the question, and they asked us to look into ourselves and our morality and asked us, who do we want to be? And they encouraged us and dared us to be better. And we're on that path now. So they've made the moral case for housing as a human right. I'm going to try to make the legal case for housing as a human right by introducing a constitutional amendment so that housing is a human right in the state of California. We've worked on that. We introduced language with Carol Fife and Ace. Thank you. I love you guys. You're incredibly courageous. You get it done. You show the way. You're brave. You're courageous. You're value-based leaders. So let's keep working together and fight for an affordable California and housing as a human right. Thank you.
Carol
well. I have to say that I'm really touched and honored by people lifting up what I did, but this couldn't have happened without a huge community effort, without the mothers who were courageous enough to stand for what they needed and what they believed in, for the community when we had hundreds of people come out and say, no, you will not take this house from these children, for the security that came out to make sure that we were safe after there was a break-in, when someone tried to actually force their way into the home, without our community activists, without the members of my organization, without the planning of organizers, without the elected officials that were pushing on their side with their power to try to get Wedgwood to come to the table. This is not about me. This is about us. It has always been about us. It has always been about the issues of housing and who actually deserves it. Right now, the laws that are on the books were created by wealthy white male landowners who owned slaves, who owned their wives, who owned property. Those are the laws that we're fighting to change. So we have to ask, when criminals are making the laws, where is the justice? When the criminals write the law, where do we find justice? Because it doesn't exist for people who look like me. It doesn't exist for women who look like Dominique and her children. So until the change comes from the bottom up, we will continue to see these encampments in our city grow. We will continue to see people lose their lives from having to exist inside of the violence of homelessness. We don't have to be those people. We don't have to be that city. And I'm standing here as an example with people who believe the same thing that I do. And I know if you're hearing my voice, you believe that too. So I'm saying, where do we find justice? And I believe we create it. Because the reality is, and I usually don't write, but in the wake of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, we've seen in housing, jobs, healthcare, education, and politics, the powerful elite gamble with our lives on a daily basis, every day. And it is only when people stand up and say no more that things change. That is what the status quo is. The existence of inequity in our everyday lives. And there are people that are living, hanging with their lives in the balance right now in this city, in this state, who want a different reality, who want a different paradigm. And it is up to all of us to co-create that. So how in 2020 do corporations have more rights than human beings? How are they people, but these children who are living in this house are not? Why is eminent domain okay in West Oakland when it's clearing black bodies out of their neighborhoods for a BART station and a post office, but claiming housing to live in is not? Why are we silent about the reality of the generational impact of the theft of land on indigenous land? Why are we not talking about everything here is stolen? All of this land is stolen. All of this is indigenous land. So at what point do things start becoming illegal? When is it illegal? I believe that human life should outweigh profit. Humans before profit. People over profit. That is what we are fighting right now. And scarcity is a lie. Our pain is manufactured. Our struggles are commodified. And the actions that Moms for Housing took were bold and courageous, like the lunch counters in the South, like the marches in Selma, like the lone protester in Tiananmen, like the cameras in Vietnam, and like the open casket of Emmett Till, and the bullet-ridden apartment of Chairman Fred Hampton. That is what this was. It was an act of civil disobedience to highlight the inequity, the violence, and the terror of this system of housing. Because if you don't have safe housing, you don't have anything else. You can't build anything else living out of a car or out of a tent with your children. How do they get an education? How do you take a shower to go to a job interview? How do you do anything? How do you maintain diabetes medication? How do you have anything without housing? That should be our top priority. It is the civil rights issue of our time for black people in this city, who are 70% of the homeless population, and it is our charge. And if you thought that this action was criminal, then you are out of touch with most of the people in this city. That's right. If you thought that what this did was to highlight some idea of getting attention for individuals, you are out of touch with what people are experiencing on these streets. It impacts people that are sheltered and people that are unsheltered. Our city services are stretched. Everyone is in pain because of our housing crisis. It impacts us all, wherever you sit, wherever you lay your head at night. And so it is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our imperative to make sure that we end this. Scarcity is a lie. There are 4 vacant properties for every 1 unsheltered person in our city. What are we going to do about it? The reality is, if you're sheltered, if you lay your head on a pillow, you can turn it off. Our desensitization is taking our humanity. We got to get it back. It will consume all of us if we don't. So once again, if you were confused about this action, then you are out of touch and you are a part of the problem. Because I'm going to tell you something. This is what solidarity looks like. This is what solidarity looks like. And we are winning. We got to keep it up. I appreciate every single one of you. All of you all were a part of this process when it was unpopular. All of you. All of you took the heat and tried to push Wedgwood to come to the table to say, we will buy this. It's not about theft. If it was about theft and squatting, we would have done it quietly. No one would have known. It was about highlighting the problems of inequity and speculation and the fact that these corporations are buying 300 units per month, not allowing regular people to go and buy because we can't compete. We can't compete. But there are more of us than there are of them. People power will win. And I appreciate you all for being here today.
We're going to do questions. First, we're going to do a little deed signing ceremony. We're going to sign the deed to the mom's house right here and now.
I just want to thank the Oakland Land Trust for making it possible and returning the house to the community. And we're going to symbolically sign those who did the hard work to bring the property back to the community.
Hello.
Dominique Walker said, I want speculators out of my hood.
Yes.
Whose house?
Mom's house.
Whose house?
Mom's house. We got to give a shout out to Misty, Talani, who else? Sam, Sharina, Marika, all the moms that weren't here today. We got to give a shout out.
Any questions?
Where are those moms today?
Working. They're working. So we're still trying to find, they're in temporary housing. They have year leases that we were able to secure through Nikki Bass. So we're still trying to rehab this house. And we have another house that we have in the works too. So we're starting a program where we're going to work with the Alameda Labor Council and Rising Sun to have a rehab program where we're teaching people how to rehab these properties so that we can put so we can put people in the houses. So we're going to work out a pilot program to train people on those skills so that we can get folks in housing.
Oh, where will this house be ready?
Steve?
Oakland Land Trust.
Woo-hoo!
We should be starting in the next month or so on the rehab, and it'll take us 4 or 5 months to complete.
Steve, can you tell us, about the roof and what else work is needed? I know we've been inside, and can you tell us about the extensive?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything is needed. You can see here that the porch is careening to the right here. The roof needs to be replaced, electrical, plumbing, all the windows will be replaced, the foundation will be repaired. We're looking at converting under the porch here, there's a space that had never been finished, converting that into a habitable ADU, accessory dwelling unit, so increasing the number of people that can live here safely. That's about it. Yeah, I mean, it needs complete rehab.
So ballpark figure in terms of how much money it's going to take to...
Several $100,000.
When it's all said and done, how many people do you expect can call this home?
I don't know. We don't know yet. We'll be working with the moms to figure out the ultimate use.
Who's going to move in there first?
We plan on using this space as a transitional home and working with the mothers who stay here on a program to get their credit together to make sure that they have gainful employment. We're working on creating a co-op and child care assistance. So it will be a transitional home for women to get their lives together while we find permanent housing that we're going to work on with our elected officials to have more units that are affordable for our residents.
That's right.
And I think it's really also important to say that none of this money that purchased the house was from the city of Oakland. It was completely a philanthropic effort. So I know there's been a lot of speculation about who purchased the house. They were people who really cared and wanted to see this house off the speculative market. So there were several individual donors.
Could you tell us how you came to the decision to use this house as a transitional, as transitional housing?
It was a decision that the mothers made. It really was. From the beginning, they said they wanted a home base where they could have meetings and give resources to other unsheltered mothers who were looking for support. And they decided that this would be the perfect place to do that. So right now, we've been researching masonry companies who can imprint the names of all of our supporters and donors and organizers so that we can pave this driveway with the names of the people who made this a reality. So if there's anyone who knows of any masonry companies that can do that so we can imprint this and it's a permanent installation at this house, please let us know.
That'll be me.
Woo! Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
There we are.
I got a question for Steve. Not to put you on. Can you tell us a little about yourself, about where you're from?
We should do a one-on-one interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more question just about the house, maybe for Steve. Also, Zillow said the final purchase price was $587,500. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And then why did it take? What was the time frame between buying the house in late May and then today doing the signing? What was the timeline in between? Like what was the delay for?
There's no delay. I mean, we've been doing work to evaluate how much rehab is needed and raise additional funds for that. And so that's really what we've been up to.
Okay.
Yeah, COVID actually delayed some of the work that we needed to do. So that's one of the things that we were talking about, just trying to get the companies in who would send in crews to look and do a walkthrough. So it's really important. And then there are a lot of people who are just confused. I know I've been talking to people who have a lot of misinformation about what was happening with the house. So that it was really important for us to let the public know what the status was. There are all kinds of rumors that are going around, and we wanted to set the record straight. COVID was a big piece of that, and now we're actually getting things into motion. So I think that's...
Yeah, no, that's right.
Was that below market price?
It's hard to say what, I mean...
A little bit. Maybe a little.
Maybe a little bit. I mean, the condition's awful, but their house is selling for $1 million in this neighborhood.
And this is a question for everybody. Do you think it was a fair price? Do you wish it had been lower?
We certainly wish it had been lower. With the goal of keeping this permanently affordable, every dollar helps in that regard.
How do you feel that Wentworth behaved at the bargaining table once they agreed to sell the house?
Was there a bargaining table?
Yeah, there wasn't much of a bargaining table. It was just coming to terms and closing the deal.
What did they get the house for?
I don't remember. Yeah.
Another question for city council members. Back when Wedgwood first agreed that they were going to, negotiate with the land trust to sell the house, there were several other things that Mayor Schaaf and the city announced as wins that would come with that. And one was Wedgwood agreed to allow the city or the land trust or other nonprofits the first chance to buy all the homes in Oakland that it was going to sell. Do you guys know, has Wedgwood sold any homes in Oakland since then? And has the city or the land trust been offered any? And has that resulted in any sales?
I can speak to it.
Yeah.
No, you
A
speak
few
to
of us
the-
can answer
Yeah,
this question.
you speak to the Wedgwood homes. I can speak to some of the other terms.
Yeah.
As far as we know, Wedgwood has continued purchasing properties in Oakland, and there are several current properties that we're in discussion with them about that they've purchased and they're occupied. They were houses that had gone through foreclosure, and they purchased them out of foreclosure with the existing families there. And so we're currently in discussions about evaluating the feasibility of acquiring those.
So there were a few other things that came out of the moms movement. One of them is that the Permanent Affordability Fund, which was created last year by my office together with ACE and the Land Trust, setting aside $12 million to ensure that tenants could purchase their homes with land trusts and co-ops to avoid displacement, to increase community ownership. One of the agreements with moms and the mayor's office is to make sure that that $12 million is really focused on stemming displacement and increasing community ownership. So we are actively working to make sure the remainder of those funds will do just that. We are actively working to make sure that we can add more money into that pot. And so again, it takes a whole movement and community to keep Oaklanders housed. And if there are others out there who are interested in making an investment so that tenants can purchase their homes so they can be permanently affordable and owned by the community, we are also looking for people and organizations to partner with us. And then, of course, I reference the policy that Moms for Housing inspired, which is the Opportunity to Purchase Act. So I will continue to advance that. We want to make sure that we have laws in place that prevent speculative corporations from owning homes that sit vacant. And that is just one example of a policy that my office is committed to passing together with the moms and the broader community.
To follow up on that, when is TOPA going to be introduced, and why hasn't it been yet?
So I have not yet introduced it because of COVID interrupting and the economic recession and so many other things sort of taking precedent in terms of what the city of Oakland is focused on. But I am definitely committed to introducing it after the election.
Assemblymember Bonta, can you expand on that amendment you were mentioning before?
Yeah, we have it in print and we can share it with you as well, but we introduced a California State Constitutional Amendment with the partnership and collaboration of ACE and Carroll that makes housing a human right. And so it fundamentally transforms and creates a paradigm shift around the idea that housing is a commodity, that it's an economic and financial transaction. We're saying no, it's a human right, and it has things in it like people will not be evicted from their homes into homelessness, that we will produce more affordable housing, and there's a role for the courts to sort of the way consent decrees have worked with desegregation orders, to make sure that courts have oversight of what governments, including the state government. So this makes us do more as well, and we must and we should, as well as local governments that have been NIMBY or dragging their feet or not supporting enough housing for their people, to do more and to have court jurisdiction to make sure that there's more tenant protections, make sure there's more housing, make sure we're addressing homelessness. So it covers a wide variety of issues that help people have safe and secure housing, but it fundamentally transforms the value, and it puts it in our most important document, our Constitution, and it says housing must be a human right. We must do more to build, to protect, to preserve. And so we're happy to share the language with you. It's short but powerful, and it hasn't been done before in the United States. We want to be the first, and we want to make sure that we're uplifting this idea that housing is not a capitalist transaction. It's something that every person needs, as Carol was saying. It's fundamental to human existence, and we have to do better.
Woohoo! Well, and the one other thing I would add to that is this one house, this victory is incredibly important, and it also highlights that there are thousands of homes. There are thousands of homes that are either sitting vacant because speculators are sitting on them, or that are being sold by counties at foreclosure auction, or that are being taken by banks in foreclosure. So you have county tax auctions, you have bank foreclosures, you have speculators sitting on them. So while thousands of people are living on the sidewalks in really difficult conditions, we have thousands of homes sitting vacant. And so when the county sells a home at tax auction, when a bank sells a home out of foreclosure, all of these types of situations, we must give first priority to the community, to the tenants, to the affordable housing groups, to places like the Land Trust, to acquire those so that they stay in the community and that housing doesn't just become another speculative commodity that people buy just to flip and they leave it empty. And every house that is left empty undermines the community, undermines the fabric of the neighborhood, and means there's another family homeless because that house is sitting empty. So taking action to crack down on that is an important part of how we free up more homes for our community. And I'm very grateful to our assembly member for pushing for this principle, and also for Moms for Housing for making everyone have to pay attention to it. Thank you.
Let me say a couple of quick words. First, I want to thank Rising Sun, whose offices are just a few blocks from here. Amazing organization, and I want to thank them for being part of this solution, keeping costs down. They do great work. I want to say that we're in the middle of a COVID crisis. We don't know if it's the middle. We're in a COVID crisis. At some point coming out of it, whenever that is, we are at tremendous risk of having another foreclosure crisis like we had out of the last recession. This is very serious, and we have to do whatever we can, city, county, state partners, to stem and work to make sure that we don't have that same foreclosure crisis, and that if it does happen, that the properties that are foreclosed, let's try to minimize that, but the ones that are foreclosed must go to those who are in greatest need. This can't be about corporate speculators. It has to be about the people who need housing the most. All right? So let's stem the tide of the foreclosure crisis, work to make sure people get the housing they need, and protect our tenants as we've done in the past. We have more to do to protect tenants, to make sure they're not displaced, not pushed out. It's a comprehensive set of things we need to do, and we're working on that. And when there's more we need to do, we've got to keep on working hard. And this is one of those things. We should celebrate today and then get back to work tomorrow.
Woohoo!
Reliable data sort of on the number of vacant housing units, and I hear sort of numbers thrown around, but I'm just curious as to what your source, like is the city tracking that? Where does the sort of data on the number of vacant